What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one, I want to talk a little bit more about the defense, right? I mentioned in the cornerback video we just put out a little bit ago, but I want to talk about the pass rush, which obviously was a massive problem in week 2, right? You don't have Latu, and we really couldn't get home. Now, Denver does have a good offensive line, right? They got some good guys up front, right? Especially on tackles. They have Mike McGlinchey and they also have Garrett Bowles, right? Two really good offensive linemen there, two really good tackles in the NFL. And they just overall have a solid offensive line, right? So I expected us to have some challenges there, but it was honestly more of a challenge than what I was honestly expecting us to deal with there in week 2. So coming into week 3, right? You expect, at least from the sounds of it, I think Latu's progressing in a way where he's going to be okay to go. So hopefully getting him back, right? And hopefully we learn something with Jalen Jones. If he's not like completely good, there's anything that might be there, then go ahead and hold him out. More than okay with that, to be completely honest with you. Going against the Titans, whose offensive line isn't great, if you have to hold Latu out, let's do that. Like, I'm more than okay with that, right? Just make sure when you bring him back that you're not bringing him back too early, right? We did that with Juju Brents, got him back in the action in 2024. It was too early. He ends up out for the season. Bringing Jalen Jones back too early, now he's going to be missing a good chunk of time. So with Latu being as important as he is to the pass rush, you got to make sure he's going to be okay. But assuming, right, again, from the sounds of it, I think we're going to be able to get him back. So putting him back in there should help us. Now, it's not like in week 1 he had, massive numbers. He didn't come out and have, a multi-sack game in week 1 against the Dolphins or anything like that. We still got to be able to work on the pass rush. Honestly, with the guys that we have with Latu, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart on that front, I thought we'd have more success over the first 2 weeks, and we're just not. Right now, teams are double teaming DeForest Buckner and doing everything they can to take him out of the game and make sure he's not going to be impacting the game. Now, I do think Tamiade has shown some good stuff over the first 2 weeks, especially this past week, and from the interior in the pass rush. When we're in obvious passing situations on the defense, I think he needs to be there. Even if you're putting him at edge, right, and having him rush from the edge, I think that would be a good experiment, right? Not sure how that would go, but rushing from the interior, even in the run defense, he had a pretty good week this past week, much better than what we saw from him in the past. So with his development and him seeming to honestly maybe the best defensive lineman we had in terms of run and pass this past week, and actually I think his grade, even though we don't really care about PFF, they're pretty trash. His overall defensive grade this past week, I think was pretty sure was top 3 on the defense. With Nick Cross, obviously, was the best person on our defense this past week. Cam Bynum getting another interception. So overall, I think Tamiade needs some more time. But what else can we do to help the pass rush? Right? It has to be better. And with situations in the NFL changing after a couple weeks, the Bengals with Jake Browning are going to continue to try to win games. But looking at their situation in their own division, going to be tough for them to win the division, even though they are 2-0 at this point. Jake Browning has come in and helped them win games before. But just looking at the obvious step back that they're going to inevitably take, I think it comes back to the conversation of Trey Hendrickson, right? A guy that just got a raise, right? So he's making $30 million this year. His cap hit is high. But I do think if the Bengals start to get in a situation where they're losing, where their defense starts to look exactly as we expected their defense to look, then I think as the Bengals look to move forward, and right, if they're losing games and playoffs start to seem like a long shot, right, and this is probably a move that would happen, more toward the trade deadline if they're losing games. But I think the Colts should continue to do their homework and should continue to look at the option of possibly going and getting Trey Hendrickson. And I think it would be valuable for both sides, where you can get some trade capital from the Colts and in a move where the Colts, all of a sudden, if the Colts continue to win, then, Chris Ballard and his front office and the coaching staff, they're looking at, okay, how can we not only win this year, but look towards the future at trying to win more in the future and get a team together. And you go and get a guy that's familiar with Lou Anarumo's system. You can plug him in right away, and he's going to be able to make things happen, right? Those pass rushers. I think Von Miller said some good stuff a couple weeks ago where he was talking about, with pass rushers, it's not so much pass rush moves necessarily and needing to develop in that way. It's just understanding the position, understanding the film, how you can take advantage of different tackles. And right now, Trey Hendrickson leads the league in pressures, right? Through 2 weeks, he is once again a top pass rusher in the league. So I think it would make sense for the Colts to continue to do their homework. If we continue to win, if the Bengals end up, falling off after a 2-0 start, their first 2-0 start in Joe Burrow's entire career, and now Joe Burrow's hurt and is going to be out for 3 months. If they're out of the playoff picture by the time he comes back, then does it really make sense for them to bring him back? Probably not. They're probably playing for their own draft position, right? Play safe with Joe Burrow, get him back in 2026, and hope to go on a run next year, and getting some extra draft capital, possibly even getting a player, right, in return, I think would be smart. And the conversation for me doesn't really change. I still think, especially now with Trey Hendrickson getting a raise, and this is what we talked about the whole time, giving them another defensive end, somebody to plug right into that spot, just makes sense, right? So that we could give Trey Hendrickson more money, and that doesn't change. So his cap hit for the 2025 season after his revived contract, he gets obviously the $29 million contract, which included $13 million in new cash. His cap hit for this season is just north of $25 million. Well, what do the Colts have? The Colts currently sit at $5.7 million in cap space. So not a lot there. So you're going to need to make some things happen. Now, what can you do to make that happen? If you include Kwity Paye in part of that trade, then Kwity Paye's cap number this year, fully guaranteed. So his cap hits 13.387. So you open up more money there. Now, you're going to need more money. So some other things that can happen. And to go back to the cornerback conversation we were having, if you traded for, if you signed somebody for cornerback, that takes up some of the cap space. So how can you restructure contracts to be able to open up money? When you look at the restructure numbers, and I'm getting these numbers from Over the Cap, and these are their dead money and cap savings numbers. So the cap savings numbers for guys that you need to restructure, the first one I'm looking at is Quentin Nelson. His guaranteed money this year is only $2 million. That's why I'm looking first at him, right? And his restructure number is the third highest on team, where you can open up another $7.65 million in cap space, right? Which at that point, if you're able to trade Kwity Paye and restructure Quentin Nelson, you open up just enough money. You're right at that number to be able to bring in Trey Hendrickson and make that work, right? So, and then of course you have Xavier Howard. If the cornerback conversation, you get rid of Xavier Howard, bring in a guy like Stephon Gilmore, what would that number be? Probably not crazy, right? So you're able to do that, and it's not like his I think it was $1.25 million is what his contract is at. I sit here and look, $1.255 million for Xavier Howard. So if you're able to open up, just a little bit more money there in the cornerbacks, and be able to bring in Stephon Gilmore, right? So you have to start opening up money in different ways. Again, you get over $13 million, 13.37 if you trade Kwity away, which makes up some of that difference. You restructure Quentin Nelson's contract, since he's only guaranteed $2 million. Restructure his contract, give him an extra $7.654 million, and then or you save an extra $7.654 $1.654 million in terms of cap. And then the next one is going to be DeForest Buckner, who has $23 million in guaranteed salary this year. He has the biggest cap number on the Colts. And if you restructure him, that opens up $16.3 million. Right now, do you want to do that? And you could restructure it like that. That's max cap savings right there. But if you're able to do that, then we're in a way where we can definitely open up enough money to bring in Trey Hendrickson. Still gives you some flexibility to do anything if you need to toward the end of the year. If you need to bring in another veteran somewhere, we have pretty good depth throughout the team. But if you need to bring in another veteran somewhere, like restructuring two of your longest tenured veterans, two of the guys that have been loyal to the team. Right, they've stuck it out through some bad years, so that's why I'm looking at those two. Right, Michael Pittman Jr. would be another option. You restructure his contract, max savings there is going to be $8.4 million. So you got to work some things in certain ways to make a Trey Hendrickson trade happen. But again, the way the things might look for the Bengals, the way the Colts season is going, right? The seasons could go in two completely different directions, even though both these teams are currently 2-0. Without Joe Burrow, that really changes things for the Bengals, and looking toward the future for them and how they need to continue to rebuild that team and rebuild the defense, right? After this year, if they don't want to re-sign Kwity Paye, they don't have to, right? But they give themselves flexibility for the rest of the year if they knock off some of that money from Trey Hendrickson by getting Kwity Paye, right? That gives them a little under $12 million difference there in terms of a cap hit. And so you add that money for them. They have a little bit of flexibility to do what they need to if they can win some games, right? Yeah, I don't expect Jake Browning to go out there and continue to keep the Bengals undefeated. But they still have a good offense over there, not a good offensive line, which is really going to be to their detriment. But again, it all plays into it. They need to rebuild that team around Joe Burrow. Right. So even though Trey Hendrickson is on the last year of his deal and they're going to have the flexibility going into next year, even though they have, some really high priced guys on that team, they obviously need to rebuild the offensive line. They need to continue to rebuild the defense. So it makes sense for me. I can understand the conversation of why you don't do that from the Colts side. I can understand the conversation of why you don't do that from the Bengals side, right? They went through the whole Trey Hendrickson thing and then all of that just to restructure them finally. And then now you trade them, right? But things change. And after week 2, I think things have massively changed for both of these teams. I think all the Colts fans that were like, no, don't trade for Trey Hendrickson. You need those draft picks for the next regime that comes in because we're not going to win many games, right? There were a lot of people saying that in the comments of these videos that we were making about Trey Hendrickson in the offseason. And now we sit in a very different spot where a lot of people expect us to be able to make the playoffs. Like we seem like a very real team. We got to keep our foot on the gas. The Saints looked like a real team last year and fell apart after week 2. But going forward, like we look like it's sustainable, but the offense looks sustainable. The defense, there are different things that need to change on the defense. And again, we talked about the cornerbacks earlier. If you didn't see that video, go check that out as soon as this one's over. But the pass rush is obviously an issue, and Trey Hendrickson leads the NFL in pressures right now. So I think that's a direction the Colts need to continue to look to go is, hey, do we go get a guy like Trey Hendrickson? What do we need to do to make that happen? Do we need to trade a player and picks, right, to be able to make that happen? Do we need to restructure guys to be able to make that contract work for us so we can make that trade? So overall, I think it's something that the Colts can do. I've looked into this heavily, looked into the different numbers. Again, shout out to Over the Cap for these numbers. They generally do a really good job. I know a lot of people go to Over the Cap for these sorts of things, and that's who I'm using for this information. And I think we can make it work. And I think getting Trey Hendrickson on that defensive line would really impact things as we continue to move forward, right? Have him, Latu, DeForest Buckner. If they're going to keep doubling DeForest Buckner all the time, then we got to have somebody that can get that consistent pressure until Latu proves that he's really able to do that, right? I know a lot of us have a lot of faith in Latu, but you got to be able to see it on a consistent basis from week to week. So that's what I'm looking at with the Colts pass rush. And I don't know if I ever even said these numbers. Through 2 weeks, the Colts pass rush has the lowest pressure rate at 20.6, right? Now, opposing quarterbacks going against us have the sixth quickest time to throw at 2.61, which, again, in the Dolphins game, you expected that. The Broncos, being able to hold on to a ball longer. They had a good offensive line, whatever the case may be. But the Colts D-line is also, and shout out to Noah Compton for this little nugget, the Colts D-line is tied for 31st in get-off speed. So it just has to be better. Try to find a way to go get Trey Hendrickson. Like, in my opinion, you just have to do that if you're the Colts and you have serious aspirations of winning. This offense is going to continue to score points. You just got to make sure the defense isn't the reason we're not scoring points, right? Go give Lou Anarumo the pieces he needs and let him continue to work. And get the guys on that front that can help the secondary. Go get guys in the secondary that can help the guys on the D-line. And overall, again, we talked about the corners earlier, so go check that video out. If you enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure you guys subscribe with notifications on. And, of course, I appreciate you guys stopping by for another video. And, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.